Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
I need some help this afternoon. A lot of people would say I need a lot of help all the time, but especially today, I need some help, okay? I have tried all day. As a matter of fact, I started yesterday trying to find any coverage anywhere, radio, television, newspapers, coverage of the $400,000 taxpayer hotel ripoff. Trying to find if there's any coverage other than the Sun chain in any segment of the mainstream media. As I say, other than the Sun. Tried everywhere. I don't see any coverage anywhere. Radio, television, newsprint, even online. Not only the almost $400,000 that we taxpayers, poor buggers, poured out for hotel rooms in London during the Queen's funeral, but the $6,000 a night room that either Justin Trudeau or Mary Simon stayed in. They won't tell us who stayed there, but you can be sure it was one of the two. Probably Justin Trudeau, right? By the way, we did find out that whoever was in that $6,000 a night room stayed there 5 nights. Figure it out. That's $35,000. We taxpayers got sucked out of our pockets $35,000 for one person, maybe two, in one room for 5 nights. $35,000. While many Canadians line up at the food banks. 31 other rooms were rented out at taxpayers' expense for about $2,000 a night for 5 nights, sometimes 4 nights. Total, almost $400,000. And I don't see any mention of it anywhere except the Sun. Thank God for Brian Lilley. I'm going to tell you, if it were not for Brian Lilley, I don't think we'd know any of this stuff, and probably a lot of other scandals. There's no question in my mind that the great overwhelming bulk of the mainstream media, which includes radio, television, newspapers, weeklies, no matter where you look, do not want to do anything to tick off Justin Trudeau, keeping in mind that Justin Trudeau has paid out more than $2 billion this year of our money to the media. So here we have a bribed media, $2 billion. I mean, the CBC gets over $1 billion alone, right? 600 million went out to various newspapers, another 300 million. We're looking at more than $2 billion Trudeau sent out in bribes to the media. And very clearly, they are doing what Trudeau wants, aside from the Sun. And, you know, I wake in fear that somebody is going to drop the hammer on the Sun, and they'll be forced to stop reporting this stuff as well. But what I'm asking is, if there is anybody out there, I'm only one guy, you know, I can't monitor everything all at the same time. Do my best.
You do better than most, Mr. Green.
I mean, I've been at it a long time, so I know.
Yes, I know.
I have not been able to find any coverage anywhere. Radio, television, CBC, CTV, global newspapers, nothing aside from the Sun. John, you have a hand on internet stuff and so forth. Have you seen anything?
I have seen it. Nope. I've seen it absolutely nowhere. And while you were talking away there, I thought, okay, let's just see what's out there. So allow me to share my screen. Actually, I can do this. I can share it to the. Okay, it's a little messy right now, but here we go. I think you're seeing my screen. So the Google search.
What is that? What am I looking at?
So that's Google. Okay. So I've typed in the following search criteria: Liberal hotel, $400,000, and under the news tab, there's the Toronto Sun, 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 and then it disappears. It's nowhere to be found. What other search criteria would I like? Liberal Hotel London? Okay, same thing. Toronto Sun, the Toronto Sun, the Toronto Sun, and then it disappears. It's nowhere to be seen.
This is disgraceful. Excuse me. This is disgraceful. And I have to point out something else. It doesn't just end with almost $400,000 for hotel rooms, $35,000 for one room alone for 5 nights. Brian Lilly, God bless him again, reports that bacon and eggs, one order of bacon and eggs for breakfast at this hotel, $42.
Oh, jeez.
A cup of tea, $35. This is where 30, 31, 32, 35 Canadians were staying totally at our expense. I suspect we'll probably never get the final figure because even though it's access to information and the law says we taxpayers have a right to know where our money is being spent and by whom. But, I mean, let's face it. I mean, Trudeau can pretty well do anything he wants. Aside from the Sun, nobody bothers to even report it. So it's highly doubtful if we will ever get the full tab. But you know what, folks? You can be sure that it'll be well in excess of $2 million.
Oh, sure.
Because $400,000 is just for rooms. Okay, almost $400,000 just for rooms alone. Does not include meals, doesn't include liquor, it doesn't include transportation, doesn't include the flights, doesn't include the souvenirs that I'm sure many of these little piggies at the trough bought at our expense, sent us the bill. I mean, why would people like this care about what the taxpayers have to fund? Don't forget, one of them, in all probability, because it's the same group, this elitist, piggy at the trough, pirate group, bums, all as far as I'm concerned. One of them, or someone just like it, ordered a more than $200 salad during that infamous Mary Simon flight to Dubai.
How much was the salad?
Over $200. The total bill for the airplane food on the flight from Ottawa to Dubai was over $100,000. That's the kind of pigs that we're talking about here. I mean, and as I say, we just let them get away with it. The media, aside from the Sun, just totally ignores it. There's CFRA, station that I played a major role in building into something worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they don't even have the guts, the courage, the integrity to even apparently report this. Unless if somebody out there has heard CFRA or CJOH or anybody even talking about this.
We have comments on that. We'll get to that.
Okay. I would be very pleased because, as I say, over $2 billion in taxpayer money gone out to the media. And this is the kind of coverage that we get. Now, I have to point out something else. And once again, I want to thank Brian Lilly for this. Ralph Goodale, for whom I always had respect. He's been around forever. He was a member of the Chrétien government. He was in opposition against Stephen Harper. It was Ralph Goodale who almost, well, not single-handedly, but played a major role in hounding and harassing Stephen Harper and Bev Oda until poor Bev had to resign in disgrace and essentially just faded. She was a cabinet minister. He hounded her over the fact that she ordered a $16 glass of orange juice. This has got to be the most infamous glass of orange juice ever. So Ralph Goodale, as a member of the opposition, hounded Bev Oda into resignation, or played a major role in it, over a $16 glass of orange juice. Well, guess who in all probability would have been responsible for booking this hotel, etc.? Ralph Goodale, the same Ralph Goodale, because he is Canada's High Commissioner to London. So he would have been responsible in all probability for booking this, or certainly his office, he would know all about it. So who booked this hotel? One of the most expensive, luxurious hotels in the world. Who did? Well, Ralph Goodale would have played a major role. And so Ralph Goodale has no problem with $42 cups of tea, or $35 cups of tea, $42 bacon and eggs, $6,000 a night hotel rooms, but poor old Bev Oda, the conservative, $16 for a glass of orange juice. Out you go. Goodale is quoted as saying that she deserved to be fired from her job because she had, quote, abused the taxpayers over the $16. And the media doesn't see this fit to even comment on, to even report, aside from God bless the Sun. And by the way, I want to take some credit here. 1983, I founded single-handedly the Ottawa Sunday Herald. Did it with my own money, a few dollars from a couple of supporters. That was pretty well it. Went through hell. It was a terrible time. The economy was rotten. The inflation rate was God knows where. Interest rate was around 18%. But very foolishly, I was young and stupid and foolish, started the Sunday Herald. Managed to keep it alive. And you know who took over? Who we sold to? The Sun, the Ottawa Sun. So I take some credit. If we didn't have the Sun in Ottawa, we wouldn't know any of this stuff. John, we have a phone call. Bruce and Renfrew. Bruce, are you on the line there, sir?
Yes, I am.
What's on your mind?
There?
Go ahead, sir.
Well, I want to know. Okay, I'm very dissatisfied with this government, and I'm sick of the spending and the stupidness of this government and the people who voted for them. I want to set up a protest against it. And what do I need to address the House of Commons for votes against them? Like I'm doing a survey.
Well, I mean, anybody can start a petition of any kind. Starting a petition is pretty easy today. You can do it online. In my day, you had to do it with snail mail.
Yeah.
But it's. I mean, can I tell you the best thing is just talk it up as much as you can, and you're doing a job here on this, and send a letter to your MP. Let them know, or send a phone call. I've often said, and I know this for a fact, if an MP received 100 phone calls, emails, or faxes or whatever, he would panic. She would panic. That's all it takes. Just 100 people out of 37 million people, and you could change. So see if you can get some friends. You're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think the convoy was all about? This was what the convoy was all about. You know, the total dissatisfaction, sir. But God bless you. As I say, just do what you can. Try and find some other people to support you. Write a letter, make a phone call. It's pretty easy to pick up the phone and phone your MPs off. Do you know who your MP is?
Yes, Gallant.
Cheryl Gallant. Well, I'm going to tell you, I know Cheryl. In fact, I talked with Cheryl only last week. I'm going to tell you, you'll have a very, very sympathetic voice. Phone Cheryl. Tell her to pound the shit out of these people. Okay? Yeah. Do it.
Okay,
phone
great.
Cheryl.
Thank you very much.
Tell Cheryl you were talking to me, or you don't have to say that. Just Cheryl, I want you to know that I am sick and tired of this, fed up with it. I want you to do whatever you can to pound the hell out of these bastards. Thank you very much for caring, sir. Thank you. Go ahead, please, John.
Yeah, and in fact, we know that Cheryl Gallant's office does listen to this show, so that's probably already in the works. DL, by the way, chimed in. She says, I live in Renfrew. I'll sign that. The comments are coming in faster than I have a chance to cut and paste them, which is fantastic. We love when that happens. Anne says, how could Ralph Goodale face himself in the mirror unless he was drinking all the time? How could any of the veteran Liberals that continue to stand behind this goof Trudeau and form part of his government look themselves in the mirror? I used to respect Ralph Goodale no more. Stephanie's on you.
I as well. I always thought that Ralph, he was from the West. I forget his exact writing.
Saskatchewan, but yeah.
Yeah, but he I always thought that he was a pretty level-headed guy. But there's no question he played a major role in the poor old Bev Odo saga. And now, very clearly, played a major role in booking the Corinthian Hotel, which is, I say, one of the most expensive in the world. Go ahead, John.
All right. Mike says, only place I have heard anything about this is on your show. Peter says, you won't see any press unless it's from Rebel News, Counter Signal, True North. But yeah, we're talking mainstream media. I mean, these are,
I haven't even seen, to be honest with you, I follow True North, which I really like. But I haven't seen them pick up the story. I'm sure they will, but for some reason that it just doesn't seem to be resonating. $16 of orange juice was a national scandal.
Yeah.
A senior cabinet minister forced to resign in disgrace.
I remember it. You couldn't avoid that story. It was
could
everywhere.
not avoid it. And now we've got, $42 plates of bacon and eggs, $35 cups of tea, $6,000 a night hotel rooms, and there's hardly a peep of protest from anybody.
So here's a question. Here's a question. The Ottawa Sun and the Ottawa Citizen are now owned by the same company. Why is this not in the Ottawa Citizen? Why are they not running with it? Clearly, they're aware.
They're running scared from Trudeau. I mean, if in all probability, I'm going to be honest.
But it's the same ownership, so shouldn't the same reaction apply to both newspapers?
Well,
I don't get that.
I don't get it either. But this is not the first time the Citizen has been remiss in refusing to carry a major story.
Weird.
I canceled my subscription. This was, I think, 2 winters ago. Natives blocked a passenger train in the middle of a dense snowstorm. They blocked the passenger train coming from Toronto to Ottawa. They blocked the route in Belleville.
Yep.
In the middle of the night, in a raging snowstorm, they forced more than 100 people, many of them from Ottawa, off the train in downtown Belleville. It was a terrible situation. People of all ages and conditions of health forced to get off that train in a blinding snowstorm to fend for themselves. The Indians, or the natives, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to use that word. The natives were protesting something or other, God knows what. The Ottawa Citizen, even though well over 100 citizens from Ottawa were affected by this, the Citizen refused to even cover it, to give it one line of coverage. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if 100 conservatives had blocked the train and forced more than 100 people out into a raging snowstorm? Do you think it might have been headlines? But the Citizen didn't even. So I canceled my subscription. I've since renewed it. I have to have it. But it's pretty disgraceful, no question. But John, tell us about CFRA and their coverage. You were telling.
So listener comments here. Ann says, listening to CFRA, a panel of Liberal, Conservative, and NDP talking heads, and none of them thought that $400,000 was extravagant. So that's the coverage that's received on CFRA. Terry chimes in to say they had a segment on CFRA called The War Room with Tom Mulclair and others, and they thought, no big deal. So that's the coverage that played out on CFRA, your old station.
Okay. What else have we got?
Renee, why didn't he just stay at the embassy? We actually tackled that yesterday, and I was shocked to find out, Lowell, if you don't mind me paraphrasing you, there are no rooms at the Canadian embassy.
It's not, by the way, just to correct, it's not an embassy, it's the High Commission.
Okay.
All members of the Commonwealth they're high commissioners, not ambassadors. That's why Ralph Goodale is our high commissioner, not an ambassador. If it was in France, then he'd be the ambassador. Just a little lesson in history there.
Nope. Good.
Okay. A lot of people don't know that.
Nope, but I'd rather get it right.
But it's Canada House. And as I said yesterday, I've been in Canada House. It's very large. It beats the hell out of me why it couldn't accommodate some people to sleep. I don't understand it. It's very expensive. It's Canada House is a large building in downtown London, one of the most expensive districts in the world. Go ahead, John.
If the reverse were true, and let's say our governor general or our prime minister passed away, and whoever the prime minister of the moment happens to be in the UK were coming here for the funeral, would they be able to stay at the British consulate, or would they have to stay at a hotel?
They could stay perhaps at the British consulate. We also have at Rideau Hall, we also have accommodation. There have been occasions when diplomats have come here and stayed at essentially the Governor General's residence.
I always assume that that's exactly what happened.
But I'm going to tell you, to my knowledge, could be wrong, I don't think you could find a $6,000 a night hotel room in Ottawa, Gatineau, Renfrew, Arnprior, or Navan. I don't think so.
We could probably find one for about $60 an hour in Vanier, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. All right, Craig says
$60 an hour.
That's right. Craig says, I can only find Trudeau's sing-song in the lobby. No coverage at all of his spendthrift vacation at our expense. Peter says, Google would push the results down to protect Trudeau. I don't know that Google would do that. Google didn't receive a lump sum payment, did they? Mahadi says, everywhere Justin Trudeau goes, he's booed. Okay. Elvin says, when you are being bribed by those misappropriating public funds, you keep your mouth shut.
Let me ask you, it drives me crazy that we had citizens. Now, I must tell you that Stephen Harper, who's a good friend of mine, He accompanied this. He was with this group as well. Now, whether he stayed in a 2,000, I know he didn't stay in a 6,000. Whether he stayed in a $2,000 a night hotel room, I don't know. The arrangements would be made by someone else. But I'm going to tell you, if it were me and I knew that I was going to be billing the taxpayers $2,000 a night, I would refuse to stay there. I would say there's no way. Not with the conditions in Canada today and the way that a lot of people are being forced to live. So, like, does nobody have any ethics anymore? Any sense of right and wrong? I'm having a lot of difficulty here. Go ahead, John.
Yes, there are people who have a great sense of ethics and they know the right and wrong. They are Shields in Pakenham, Lowell.
You're right about that, and this is why they've stayed in business as long as they have since 1947. Same family. Great little butcher shop. I got a few comments about this. Some people apparently tried some of the sausage. They make their own sausage, but of course they specialize. Well known throughout not only the valley now, but right even down to the St. Lawrence Seaway for appliances. They're an in-stock dealership. 90%, they tell me, of anything you would want in appliances, all the big brand names, etc., different price ranges, colors, sizes, etc., all there in stock. And in fact, we're getting some reports. People, in one case, stand-up freezer, ordered it on Friday, delivered on Wednesday. That's the kind of service that you'll get from Shields. Shields.ca. The best thing I can say is, folks, they're good people. They do business the right way. Go ahead, John.
All right, Mike says, morals and ethics is what's missing these days. Kelly is on Facebook. Once the Queen died, the prices of hotels skyrocketed. I saw most were between $3,000 and $3,000 a night, but $6,000, Kelly says.
No, that's not
nuts.
true. That's not true. Apparently, there was plenty of space in hotels. And at least according to Brian Lilly, who did the research, he said, no, the $2,000 a night was the standard rate that's been listed for some time at that hotel. So apparently, according to Lilly, and I believe him, he says that if prices were not inflated for the Queen's funeral. Go ahead.
Linda, who, by the way, is now part of the show due to Cheryl Gallant's office having shared your stream. So Linda is out west and watching. Thank you. She says, good. Stephen Harper drove a minivan, didn't he?
I'm not sure. He certainly didn't live the kind of excess that Justin Trudeau is living right now. But it's the sense of entitlement that these people have. Not only Trudeau, but Mary Simon and the people who surround him. I don't know whether it's something happens when they enter Ottawa, but a lot of people just seem to acquire this unbelievable sense of entitlement, as if they say, well, you know what, the government's going to pay for this. I don't have to worry. I can do whatever I want.
The government.
Yeah, but it's not the government. It's us.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. John, what else?
Let's go to text. The number here, 613-413-2217. Glad to get a phone call today. This is such a better show. We get great phone calls like Bruce. Thank you. Text works too. Peter says, Canadian Pravda, what $2 billion will buy you? Free press, my ass, he says. To email, Lowell@blasttheradio.com. Robin Carlton Place says, hopefully conservatives will bring this up in question period. That might shame the media into at least having a comment about it.
I haven't followed question period. If anybody has seen yesterday's, I didn't see yesterday's edition of.
Nor have I, but I'm willing to bet that if Pierre Poilievre was hammering them about that, it'd be all over Pierre Poilievre's feed on Facebook, and I certainly follow that.
I would hope that somebody somewhere is going to drag this out. I mean, and the government's feet should be held to the fire. This is. I mean, this is an insult to Canadian taxpayer. Here is Trudeau, in all probability, $6,000 a night in that room. And on January 1st, he's going to increase taxes. In fact, 3 different taxes are going to be increased. Not only taxes, but this so-called clean fuel, whatever the hell it is. I can't keep track of it all.
Right.
And in other words, the cost of everything is going to skyrocket as of January 1st. And of course, Bank of Canada just increased the interest rate, which means mortgage rates, etc., up again.
Yep, another 0.5%.
I don't know where it's all going to end. But when you have government officials and etc. prepared to spend $6,000 a night on a hotel room, you get a pretty good idea where their sensibilities are. Go ahead, John.
Lowell, I would say you're someone who has done very well in his life and probably lived a pretty good life due to all the hard work. Have you ever had a $6,000 a month mortgage, let alone a $6,000 a night hotel bill? I mean, this is the extravagance they're living.
Well, actually,
well, okay.
I was one of the founders of Ottawa Travel, and we very foolishly bought Algonquin Travel for a lot of money. A lot of it was borrowed. And within about 6 months of borrowing, interest rates shot from 6% to 18%. We managed to survive, but boy, it was tough. Yeah, the mortgage payments went for about, or not the mortgage, but the interest payments went from about $2,700, as I recall, a month to over $6,000.
But my point is, the average Canadian is not paying even $6,000 for their house in a month, and they're spending $6,000 for a hotel room for a night.
Absolutely, $35,000 for 5 nights. You can buy a pretty nice car for that. Go ahead.
Yes, you can. Karen has a question. Why do we need so many police, bikes, trucks, etc. for Trudeau to go to the airport or whatever he wants to do? And somebody else mentioned the RCMP as well. Peter says, CBC reports today that the RCMP has a shortage in the VIP detail protecting Trudeau and his cabinet ministers. So one person says there's an excess, and the other person saying apparently there's not enough.
Let's be fair here. My understanding, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, is that the security details are dictated entirely by the RCMP.
Oh, yeah.
That Trudeau doesn't have a say. I find that hard to believe. But essentially, this is the RCMP's decision what sort of security to provide.
And we are being told that we are being cheap by questioning this expense. It's London, and those are just the going rates. And I don't know who's telling you that, but okay. Thank you for your comment.
Well, I'll tell you who's telling you that. The Liberal, somebody who supports this.
I suppose that's true. More likely to get a final finger than the final figure. By the way, Trudeau gets roasted much more in international media than he does at home. He cannot pay them off. Kathy says, I would like to know why we pay Trudeau his salary when he never spends his own money, only spends ours, the taxpayers. It's funny. Lisa says, no one stops those piggies, lol. We just keep voting them back in. Lawrence Review Terry on Twitch. Our first comment from Twitch today. Sorry, Twitch people. Took me so long to get to you. If the media is truly bought off by the Liberals, then our democracy is down the drain. Listen, we published the list of media that received, I mean, we don't want to say bought off, but certainly received an assistance package from the government when COVID hit. That list is public. You'd be amazed whose names are on there. It's disgusting. And the CBC asking for more money. Here's a dirty little secret I brought to Lowell's attention via an email. The CBC has a whole revenue stream that we never even talk about. How much money they make off their podcasts? Lowell seems to have faded into the oblivion here, so I'll fill for a moment. The CBC has a whole revenue stream in their podcast channels. They can't sell advertising time on radio. They're not allowed to by virtue of their license. They can on their TV streams. But they're making money via podcast. And yet we keep increasing the amount of money they need. I mean, a podcast is basically, by and large, not exclusively, but it's a rehash of stuff that's already aired. CBC is dictated by Trudeau, says Matthew. There's also military members that do details for Trudeau's security, says Steffi Sunshine. That is true. Matthew says that CFRA died when Lowell left. Well, BTR is kind of dying right now that Lowell's left and signed off. Defund CBC, says Matthew. He's correcting his original typo, which was defend CBC. Let's get to some of the last comments. We'll see if Lowell pops back on here to say his goodbye. Robert says, surprise, not me. There are dozens of examples of Trudeau fleecing the taxpayers for his elaborate lifestyle. Vacations, groceries, elaborate Indian costumes, on and on and on. Mike says maybe they would rather collect government funding and only report what they want instead of what they should. I notice a huge change in CFRA. Steffi says Cool FM died when the milkman left. Well, no, Steffi, that's not true. Cool FM died because they killed Cool FM. They took all of us off the air and switched it to Bob FM, but we all retained our jobs under Chum. I will point that out. Chum kept its people. Bell Media, when they went from Bob FM to the country station, it was a group meeting, and bye-bye, y'all. Let's just squeeze in a couple of last comments. Let me see. CFRA is a liberal platform now, says Elvin. What company puts food on the planes? How much did they make regarding the Governor General's flight? Erlene asks that. And final word will go to our friend Linda. She's on Facebook. Yesterday was all about the Bloc not wanting the monarchy. They got blasted by the Liberals as they get 3 days a year to bring up issues for the citizens of Quebec. Their day was not wanting the 15-second prayer, and yesterday was get rid of the monarchy. All right, where did you go, Lowell, says Mike. I don't know where Lowell went, but I can tell you this, folks. In his own words, we'll be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.